There's a small group of people who grew up dialing numbers on rotary phones, but also watched the first iPhone change the world. They remember life before the internet, yet they adapted faster than most people when the digital world arrived. Psychologists struggled to categorize them for years. Too young to be Gen X. Too old to be Millennials. So researchers eventually gave them a name. Xennials. A tiny microgeneration born roughly between 1977 and 1985. And psychologically, they might be one of the most interesting generations that ever existed. Xennials grew up in a world that younger generations would barely recognize. If you wanted to talk to someone, you called their house phone. If they weren't home, you simply didn't reach them. You had to remember phone numbers, not store them in a device. If you missed your favorite TV show, there was no replay, no streaming, no recording. It was just gone. Boredom wasn't something you fixed with a phone. It was something you sat with. And strangely enough, that boredom trained an important psychological skill. Self-entertainment. Xennials learned to think, imagine, and solve problems without constant stimulation. Something many psychologists say is becoming increasingly rare today. But something unusual happened right as this generation entered adulthood. The entire world went digital. Suddenly there were email cell phones, instant messaging, social media online communities, platforms like Friendster, MySpace, and Facebook appeared almost overnight. For most generations, technology evolves gradually, but for Xennials, it felt like someone flipped a switch. Their teenage years were analog, their 20s were digital, and that sudden shift happened during one of the most important psychological periods of life. According to neuroscience, the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for decision-making, learning, and adapting, continues developing until around age 25. This means many Xennials were still in a period of high brain plasticity when the digital revolution exploded. In simple terms, they were young enough to adapt quickly, but old enough to remember what life was like before. This created something unusual, a kind of psychological bilingualism. They understand both worlds, the offline world and the always connected world. Another fascinating psychological difference involves privacy. When Xennials were teenagers, embarrassing moments didn't live forever online. That awkward haircut, that stupid party story, that embarrassing breakup. Those memories existed only in stories and conversations, not permanent digital records. Psychologists studying autobiographical memory say this actually matters. Human memory is supposed to be flexible. Our brains naturally edit and reshape memories over time, helping us move on from the past. But when everything is permanently documented on the internet, that process becomes more complicated. Xennials were among the last people to grow up before permanent digital memory existed. But technology wasn't the only thing shaping this generation. Many Xennials entered the workforce around 2008, right when the global financial crisis hit. Just as they were trying to build careers, the economy collapsed. Research shows that financial instability during early adulthood can leave lasting psychological effects. It changes how people think about money, risk, security, stability. Which means many Xennials developed two powerful traits: adaptability and caution. They learned to adjust quickly, but they also learned that stability can disappear overnight. This combination created a strange psychological paradox. Xennials often carry the independence of Gen X. Many grew up in a time before helicopter parenting. Parents didn't track their location. Kids disappeared for hours and simply came home before dinner. But they also embrace technology and digital culture like Millennials. So they exist in a middle space, independent but connected, skeptical yet optimistic, digital but still comfortable without it. Few generations have had to balance two completely different worlds like this. If you're a Xennial, you might sometimes feel like you don't fully belong anywhere. Too young for some generations, too old for others. But that's actually what makes this generation unique. You remember the world before the biggest technological shift in human history. And you learned how to adapt when everything changed. In a world that keeps evolving faster every year, that ability might be one of the most valuable skills anyone can have.